Whether it's to build a passive income or to escape the 9-to-5 rat race, more and more people across the UK are turning to property investing and development as a way of making money work for them, not for them working for money. It sounds easy, but property is not a game for the faint-hearted, with hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds at stake. The rewards can be great, but if it goes wrong, it can go very, very wrong. You often need financial experience and knowledge to take that deal over the line. And that's where we come in. In this series, we give budding property developers the chance to pitch their deals to our 5 seasoned property professionals: John Howard, Helen Chorley, Paul Mahoney, Nicholas Walwork and Ranjan Bhattacharya, or who we call our property investment angels. Our contestants are in with the chance to walk away with the backing of someone who will bring both finance and experience to the deal. Will our angels be sending them up to the penthouse, or will they be heading straight for the basement? I'm Elizabeth Warburton and you're watching Property Elevator. Welcome back to Series 2 of Property Elevator. There's been millions of pounds worth of deals happened over the last few days with some very happy property investors. I can't wait to see what's in store for today.
I'm not entirely convinced you would get a scheme on this site.
Were there any contentious planning conditions, precluding any future permitted development or any parking requirements, anything like that? Is there any parking with it actually?
It's kind of been presented as a if all goes well type situation. You make 23%, all won't go well, something's going to go wrong.
It is tight on the numbers. It's normally the type of projects that I would be involved with, but the numbers just are very tight on this.
If you're coming in here, you want money offers. I don't want to hear, and no one else does probably, that you fall in love with it.
Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lizzie.
Are you excited to be here?
Very excited to be here today.
Good. Tell us a little bit about your pitch and what you're hoping from the angels today.
Today I'm looking to raise £100,000, which will be part of £200,000 that I'm looking to raise. The £100,000 will be coming from myself as well.
Yeah.
And this is for a development project in Brighton, which will be to purchase a freehold building and convert it into 6 leasehold units.
And are you wanting to partner with anyone in particular today, or are you just looking for an investment?
I'm just looking for an investment, hopefully one that will work with me again on future projects. And they're all great investors, so I would be happy to work with anyone.
Well, good luck.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best, and I will speak to you when you get out.
So next we've got Andrew. Andrew's a full-time property investor, developer, and he's a deal sourcer, I think. This deal he's bringing us is in Brighton. It's a commercial stroke residential, it will convert into 6 flats or 4 flats and 2 commercial units. In Brighton, you think it's London on Sea, don't you?
That's what they call it.
That's what they call it, is it? Yeah. And Paul doesn't know where it is.
I was there on the weekend.
Were you? Oh, I do. Yeah. Well, it's the first place you've come outside London for
daughter
about a
down the
month. Helen and Nicholas too far away, so this one's definitely for me. Shall we get Andrew in? Thank you very much for coming in today. We've had a look at the paperwork you've given us. Tell us a bit about yourself and then about the deal, and we'll take it from there.
So I've been a full-time property investor since February 2019. Prior to that, I had my own IT business, which I founded in 2007. And in my first 2 properties I bought in February 2019, they were 2 one-bedroom flats, which I turned into 2-bedroom flats and sold on to investors. I then went on and bought a 3-bed end of terrace freehold house, which I'm splitting into 2 leasehold flats. So I'm looking to grow further and do bigger and better deals.
And where do you live?
I live in Brighton.
You do?
I live, yeah, so all of my investment properties are in Brighton.
And tell us what you're bringing us today to invest into, please.
Okay, so it's this end of terrace commercial property with a 1-bedroom flat upstairs, and this plot of land on the side, which currently has this orangery. And we plan to turn the back of the existing commercial units into a 1-bedroom flat, and then build a double-storey extension on the side and have another commercial unit at the front, and a flat at the back and a 2-bedroom flat upstairs.
You've got a commercial shop there at the moment as part of it. For me, I'd rather it all be residential. Is that possible? Something you can do you think, on this or not?
But I think the existing shop will probably have to be maintained unless permitted development changes coming up will allow you to change all of it. However, I think the returns from the commercial unit will be higher than if it was residential.
The only thing I would say, it just can affect sometimes the sale prices of the residential above it and to the side of it.
And in terms of the length of the project?
Planning will be going in this month, and once planning is received, I expect it to be completed within 8 months.
And the build?
The build is within that eight-month period.
That's for everything?
That's for everything up until market and hopefully sell some of these units off plan. So the actual build should take about 5 months. And so I've allowed the 3-month period to actually engage in the work once we get the planning, and a 2-month period at the end to complete the sales.
Right.
I think the 2 months at the end is a bit ambitious. I always leave at least 6 months. And the reason for that is, yes, you sell 2 or 3 of them really well, but there's always 1 or 2 at the end. And the problem is the 1 or 2 at the end, I might leave 9 months to be fair, because the 1 or 2 at the end, that's your profit.
Exactly.
And it's always that last down one that's fallen through 3 times that you finally sell for less than you thought because you're just glad to get rid of it.
Yeah, but there's also the option to refinance and keep, because the return, the cash flow would be quite strong. Maybe not the return on the capital employed would be that strong, which is why I was looking to sell this. So
yeah, no,
it stacks up as a mix. And what I like about creating 6 leaseholds is you've got the balance. Maybe you'll keep 3 and sell 3. So you've got multiple exit options.
And could you say a little bit more about, so you're looking for an investor on a share of what you invest basis?
Yes.
So 50% for the cash funder, deal finder gets 50%, so 25% share of profits available for the investor.
That's right, yeah. So I'll be matching the £100,000 investment with the investor. And because I bought the deal today, that's the 50% for the sourcer.
So you bought the thing. What indication have you had that you're likely to get planning, or is the plan to just sit it out and wait for the PD to be announced on A3 units and the like?
Well, of course. I mean, that is the landscape is changing for that. But my planner, the local planning consultant, is very confident of getting the planning because there's an existing structure there, and on the other side, another building has been built set back from the front of this this parade. So there's obviously also potential with the new PD rights to put another level on top, if I could come to an arrangement with the other freeholders in this parade.
So have you bought it, or you haven't bought it?
We're going through now. So before the bridging company will come around and do the valuation, the existing owner needs to reinstate the dividing wall and remove the kitchen from the back.
Is that purchase subject to the planning?
No. I was confident enough that we would secure the planning, and even if we could only do the conversion at the back of the existing shop and refurbish the upstairs flat.
It doesn't really stack up without the planning, obviously, but you know, it seems like it should go through. But aside from that, I think it's really well put together. Good job on the pack and the information about yourself. You know, just to compare you to others, you've done a really good job.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
I strangely agree with John. I think this is probably more.
That doesn't often happen, I can tell you.
He knows the area. I don't think it's necessarily for me, but I think you've done a good job, and it looks like a decent deal.
Appreciate it, thank you.
And this just partition wall, is that on the left red line, is that splitting what's the existing restaurant?
Exactly.
So are they retaining the left side?
They're retaining the left-hand side, yeah. I think what the problem that they had is because they extended, it made the footprint too big, and the business rates just made the business not viable anymore.
Right.
So that's why it's been shut for a long time, and the commercial units that I would put in would be 100% Zone A retail.
What about the flat above? Would they be living above that?
No, that's we're exchanging once they vacated. So that's one condition on the purchase, is we exchange once we've got vacant possession.
Okay, but the bit they're retaining's got some residential above it?
Complete when you've got vacant possession or exchange?
Well, exchange. They want to exchange and complete with vacant possession.
So is there a residential unit above the bit they're retaining?
Yes, there is, yeah.
Okay, and what are they doing with that?
They're keeping that. So they're just making a much smaller restaurant, and they're keeping their flats.
Okay, they'll rent that flat out.
Yes, exactly.
So next door is going to be a restaurant?
Next door will be a restaurant, yes. Existing
restaurant, or it's going to be a smaller restaurant. And what do they do in there?
It's an Indian restaurant.
Indian restaurant.
Have you looked at how that might affect the values and the ability for finance?
Yes, I have. But because I know Brighton well, there's lots of Indian restaurants in Brighton.
Should go up if the food is good.
Not that you're biased.
Fair enough.
Like a great
The
biryani
smell
next
is
to it.
obviously a
We all
concern.
like a good Indian.
Yeah, the smell is a concern. So that's why I've tried to reflect that in my
Okay.
GD value and with the current COVID situation as well.
So have we all had time to digest, excuse the pun, da-dun, the deal? Shall I go first? I like you very much. I'd love you to find me some deals in Brighton. Love Brighton. Totally put me off. A restaurant is a problem. An Indian restaurant, with all due respect, and I'd be going in there if I was in Brighton for a meal. It causes all sorts of problems on mortgages and funding and so on. It isn't for me.
I'll cut to the chase. For me, it's not one for me. As John says, it's a little bit far out of my comfort zone. I don't particularly like the plot,
Okay.
and that's the reasons I wouldn't be investing today. But thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Great pitch.
Thank you.
Helen?
On a numbers basis, the numbers look really good, but I do share the concerns that are already mentioned, so not for me on this occasion, but thank you very much and a great presentation.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Ranjan?
I will say that I think you got a good deal at a great time. And I personally think that you might want to wait it out for the permitted development rights to be announced, because I think you may find it a lot easier to get more than what you think you're going to get under the new PD than you will do under planning.
Yes.
Because as you know, Brighton can be a little bit problematic to deal with.
They're at the Green Council there, aren't they? Green.
Because under PD you'll be able to go into the roof and all sorts.
Paul?
I think I summed up my thoughts earlier. You know, as I say, I think I like the way you presented it. I agree with John. I think you're likely to come up with some better deals, but it's not really one for me based upon what you've presented today.
Okay.
Andrew, thank you very much for coming today, and I definitely want to keep in touch with you, and good luck with this deal and all future deals you do.
Okay, Andrew, how did it go?
It was interesting. My first ever experience pitching to investors. Unfortunately, they weren't going to invest in this deal, but I got some brilliant feedback.
Okay, so there's potential.
There's potential for funding from other deals, which won't be subject to planning. I think that was the main issue with this one,
Right.
was subject to planning.
Okay.
I've got other deals which would be a benefit from permitted development, so hopefully those ones will be more investable.
So we have Jordan with us today. Jordan, tell us where you've come from
I've come from Wellington, Surrey.
and what is your deal that you're bringing to the Angels?
Okay, so the deal that I'm bringing today is a conversion. It's a B2 light industrial conversion to residential.
Okay.
So it will require full planning and a significant amount of money.
Lovely.
So I'm hoping that both the knowledge and finances of our Angels will help point me in the right direction and I can get a deal and a collaboration.
Jordan has brought this deal to us today, and it's 10,000 square feet of, looks like light industrial to me. I believe there's a planning application that's failed on it. Let's get Jordan in, shall we, and ask him some questions and see what we can do, see if we can invest in Jordan. Jordan, thank you very much for coming today. Tell me something about yourself and then about the deal, please.
My name's Jordan Roy. I'm a personal trainer by trade. I've always been interested in property. I've got a family of tradesmen, so father, uncle,
It's very
cousins
useful.
and so on. Yeah, definitely, which has kind of fostered my interest over the years. But since I bought my first flat, which was almost about 4 years ago now, I kind of realised that the process wasn't that difficult. I could negotiate it with regards to working out what I'm able to borrow, speaking to brokers, speaking to solicitors. It's doable. It's not unachievable. So after that, I continued in my current career, but I started trying to upskill myself as to how I could get into property. I've a friend of a friend who's been quite successful, been a developer, so I know that it was achievable. And looking at some of the people in the room, I've followed your YouTube channels and particularly Ranjan.
Oh yeah, that's nice, isn't it? Oh yeah.
I thought I'd throw
That's
it out
nice.
there, guys. I thought I'd throw it out
nice.
there.
Not the Ranjan show.
Do you want, excuse me, do you want the rest of us to leave? Leave you
Not
the
at all.
Ranjan?
Since learning of the show, I've done a bit of research on all of you. And,
Good answer.
And yeah, I've definitely found you're all successful in your own areas and just really happy to have the opportunity to present to you all.
So we've heard about yourself. Let's hear about the deal, please.
It's a B2 industrial to hopefully a C3 conversion. It's been marketed up for sale since 2015 at various different price points. It's had planning permission refused, which was in 2018. I believe that there's a good to strong case for a residential development, which is why I'm putting the proposal to yourselves. This deal, I would say, is slightly outside of my scope, definitely, and would need an angel. So if you see the value in the deal, I felt that this is potentially something
No, that's exactly why we're here.
juicy that you could get your
teeth
teeth
into.
into.
Jordan, at all.
Looking, I've gone on a viewing on the site with an architect that I've been working
Good.
quite closely with. We haven't committed to doing a sketch proposal because I offered an initial subject to and an option agreement, which were both turned down. So I didn't feel it was worth my while going out of pocket on the architectural fees when I had no possible way of financing the deal. So from the viewing that we've done and looking at the refusal notice, we believe that there could be a scheme of 5 buildings, which we were looking at a mixture of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments.
Okay, and what can you buy it for?
1.15, which is recent. Since I've viewed the property, the vendor has reduced the asking price by 100,000.
Oh, that's a good start, isn't it?
They're no longer trading from the premises. He's retired. He definitely wants to sell the property, but he's reluctant to take too low an offer or a subject to. But we know he wants to get rid of the property, so I think there's definitely a deal to be had. There may be a deal to be had with regards to different creative financing. I'm not sure what his needs are in terms of, I know he wants to get out of the property and he's obviously paying rates on the property. I've got some figures which I pass through to you guys on the rates that he's currently paying. So we know that it's costing
How
him.
much are the rates, Kyle?
The annual expenses brought the rates, the utilities per month and a mortgage payment at
I don't want to talk
65
about, we don't want to talk about mortgage payments.
So yeah,
don't
I
at the
didn't
moment.
think so. So I've
Helen,
figured off.
what do you think?
Do you know what the return on GDV on this is?
The return on GDV being the ROI?
No. The expected profit over the
Annual-
GDV?
Sorry, the cash flow?
No, so the profit you're expecting is 800k, right?
That's correct, yep,
Okay, and your GDV is 3.35.
that's correct. Yeah.
So your ROGDV is 23%. On something of that size, to me, that's quite tight. I mean, it's kind of standard, it's what people look at. I think we're in very different kind of circumstances, environment at the moment, and I do have concerns about kind of the economic environment that we're going into. So for me, that's probably a little tight. In the in your costs, so your build costs of a mill, what have you got factored in for contingency?
I've got contingencies separately at 100,000.
Okay, 10%.
I've run my build costs. I'm not a builder. I've done the research that I have on build and I've brought it in at 150,000 per building, and that multiplied by 6 equals my 900,000.
Right.
And I've put 10% on that. So I've gone, just in case we get the architect in there and we can actually get more than we expect, more development value than we expect and more square footage, then I've tried to factor in that from a build cost perspective.
And in terms of kind of your comparables to base your GDV on, where have those come from?
I made the ridiculous mistake of popping the links on the spreadsheet rather than the Word document.
See. Yes, okay,
But
that's all
next to, on the spreadsheet, there's several links of sold prices within a quarter of a mile to a half mile radius. It's like for like properties.
The last refusal of planning is relatively recent. I guess what I want to probe is why you feel that you've got a better crack at it now. Because what I would have liked to have seen is, rather than an architect being involved, is a planning consultant actually go through, because what I find is architects, they do the drawings and the space and the light and the grand homes, grand designs type of, that kind of layout people. But the planning consultant's skill set is more like a lawyer. They're looking for the precise meaning of language, words, policy, and seeing what you can do and whether something's actually justified. And that skill set is completely different to an architect. So what I would like to see is a planning consultant feasibility study to say that there's actually a prospect of getting this turned round under a slightly different scheme. Has that been looked at?
That, I'll be totally honest, it hasn't been looked at. We haven't done a feasibility study. I've been in communication with a planning consultant who works alongside the architect that I currently work with, and he's viewed it as there is, looking at the refusal letter, there is in principle a scheme is viable, but I would have to obviously go out of pocket for him to do the feasibility study.
And the second thing I'd say is that if that's the case, this has to be a subject to or a conditional type of offer. And one of the ways to bring the vendor on board is to basically cut them into a slice of the uplift so that they get more than they would do at the moment, which they're constantly reducing the price at the moment. Give them more of what they actually originally wanted by cutting them in for a share of the action.
First off, love the ambition. You know, it takes some nous to get up in front of 5 experienced people and present a deal that, as you said yourself, is beyond your means and experience at this point in time. So I have to congratulate you for that. So don't lose that. That will put you in good stead. I suppose just echoing what some of the guys have already said, this isn't a deal without planning. It doesn't work. And it's already been knocked back recently. So it's hard, especially given it, as the guys said, it's B2, it's not permitted development rights. It could just get knocked back and knocked back. Maybe they want to keep it as a Printworks, you know, keep jobs. I don't know. So without that, it's hard for it. It's not really a deal at all. So Ranjan gave some great advice there. You know, try to play around with the owner's flexibility on that to see whether they're open to it. But that's obviously not a good sign that they've turned it down already.
Yeah.
Maybe they were already given a sweetener and they still didn't want it. I also agree with Helen that, you know, it's kind of been presented as a if all goes well type situation. You make 23%, all won't go well. Something's going to go wrong, and that's going to eat into that 23%. So that's kind of where I was. So that's where I stand on it as it stands.
Nicholas?
I think, you know, the trickiness of this one is not just the fact it's been refused planning. They're citing the loss of employment, which is always a tricky one to overcome. You know, really, really tricky. You know, you're going to have to get on some hard-hitting consultants to spend a few £1,000s on reports to try and back up an argument that you can justify the loss of employment. So there's going to be some costs associated with that, and they've clearly stated that's their concern. So, you know, any number of reports might not solve that for the council. It's a political point. So I think what you would need there is to go and get a really well-respected firm to write those reports and be involved in that process, and that's going to cost you more money than a less contentious site. Also, it backs onto a row of residential properties. So anything you do build, the council is going to have significant issues with overlooking. Yeah. You know, you're going to be looking over a number of properties' back gardens. So the design of these, and then at the front there's a row of shops with presumably flats above. So on both sides of the development, on both elevations, you've got overlooking issues. And it might not be a huge issue if the distances are suitably far. It's hard to see from the basic information we've got today. But you know, with the restraints on the site and the current comments of the council, I just think there's probably better deals out there for you at this time. I wouldn't want to take that site on. You know, I want to take on a site where I know I've got the planning, or it's a no-brainer, because planning's such a huge risk in property.
Interesting. I'm not as negative about it as the others. I think from a planning point of view, it's a mixed-use area, clearly. The scheme they put in was, the last people put in was over-ambitious. You know, height-wise, spice-wise, everything was wrong with it. And I would imagine it was put in by someone pretty inexperienced. I think there's a real possibility of getting planning on this. Ideally, you do it subject to planning, of course, because you take a lot of the risk out, and if you can share some of that with the owner, you know, and encourage them, you know, tease them into doing the deal with you, that is clearly the way to do it. To get planning on that is probably £60,000–70,000 to get planning. That's the risk that you're taking. I don't think it works at the current sort of price that they want for the site. And it may well be that actually that site is more valuable for its current use, or, you know, warehouse use, than it is residential. And just because you've got a chance of doing it doesn't mean you want to do it. Even if it's got planning sometimes, doesn't mean you want to do it. So I think I like your ambition. I think it's well worth you coming today. For me, it's the deals. It's too expensive because the build costs are going to be a lot more than I think you've got in there. So for me, it's not a deal that I could invest in. But what I would say is come back on the next series, because I think you'll come back with a better deal than this one. So thank you.
Definitely.
Ranjan?
No, I echo a lot of your thoughts about, sometimes commercial, you keep as commercial. I'm not entirely convinced that you would get a scheme on this site to make a decent return for anybody. And I love the ambition, and I would focus the ambition on easier to do sites. I know I keep banging on about PD, but one of the things that's happening now, of course, is there's so much stuff that's going to be so much simpler. The planners don't have much to do now, so they're going to be all over stuff like this. Come back by looking at stuff that you can implement easier without getting those pesky planners involved. And Nick is absolutely right on the reports. I mean, they want to eat up your money by saying, get this report and that report and that report.
That would easily be 60, 70,000.
Exactly. Each one is a grand minimum, just to tell you a tree is not significant when you know it's not significant, all this sort of baloney you get. It's too complex, I think.
Paul?
I think it's all been said, really.
Yeah.
I think the consensus is that the deal probably doesn't work. It might, but probably doesn't. You've taken the right approach, I think. You've got up here, you've found the deal, you've packaged it. I'd say package it a bit better next time. Just a little bit of advice, print out 5 pamphlets, for example, so that we can all have one in front of us. Maybe do slightly more research, maybe do engage with the architect, maybe do spend a little bit of money before asking others to invest in it, to show that you're committed to the deal, and also to find out more information, because if you'd have got a pre-planning report that was very positive, that might have changed everyone's opinions.
That's a very good point, Paul.
So I think it is worth investing in something if you think it's worthwhile.
Yeah,
just a bit of advice for next time.
Brilliant.
Helen?
Yeah, for me, it's the numbers. We've talked about costs, and that obviously will have an impact on the return on GDV. So it doesn't work for me on that. But again, well done for coming here.
No,
Love your
thank
ambition.
you.
Nicholas?
Yeah, to sum up my thoughts, I think the word risk sums it up. I think you've got too many variables that could go wrong.
Yeah.
Constrained sites, numbers are a little bit under what they should be. Asbestos contamination, cost of reports. It's for one site, it's got everything that could go wrong. It might not, and you might make some money, but it's just far too risky.
It needs to be a lot cheaper.
So.
Yeah.
Jordan, thank you very much for coming in. I hope it's been useful. I know you have not gone away with a deal, but you have gone away hopefully with a lot more information and experience. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Okay, Jordan, how did we get on?
Unfortunately, my offer got declined, but I got some really positive feedback and some constructive criticism, which I can take forward onto future projects. So it was disappointing, but also a real learning experience and really worthwhile.
Mike, welcome to Property Elevator. It's lovely having you.
Thank you, it's lovely to be here.
Tell us a little bit about the deal then you've brought today.
My deal is a former bank in Stoke-on-Trent. I have planning permission to convert it into 9 flats.
Lovely.
The deal is actually looking at financing the conversion costs.
Okay, so you're looking for someone to back the whole 100%?
Or a short-term
loan
loan of money.
Okay, lovely. Well, best of luck.
Mike is coming in. He has purchased, I think, this bank in Stoke. Unfortunately, there's no money left in it by the looks of things. It looks like the safe is empty. Shall we see what Mike's got to say? Hi, Mike. Thank you very much for coming to see us today. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you brought for us to fund.
Well, I'm Mike Brown. I'm in my 60s. I'm an engineer by background. I sort of got into property as an accident probably 10, 15 years ago, and I had a couple of properties, and that's been it pretty much until recently. I went to an auction and I bought a property, and that's why I'm here today to discuss that. I've always worked full time. I had my own business in the noughties. I sold up after about 10 years, and I had a sum of money as a result of that. I then bought a flat which my daughter lived in while she was at university. The long and the short of it was then I had some spare money in 2018, and I went to some auctions, and then I came across the bank in Stoke-on-Trent and fell in love with it. I applied for planning permission to convert it into flats. So I had an architect draw up some plans, and despite it being in a conservation area, we did get planning permission to convert into 9 flats.
Yep.
I was expecting maybe 200,000 sort of conversion costs. Actually, I think the lowest was 340 and the highest was over £500,000. Property values in that area are not that high. However, the 340 option does make it a goer, I think.
And in terms of the money you've put in, you've obviously bought it. Did you buy it cash or did you?
Yes, so I bought it with cash.
Okay.
Typically, people in Guildford are renting from private landlords.
Yes.
However, the university, like other universities in the country, is recognised this and is building lots of its own properties.
Yeah, student accommodation, yeah.
And of course, not many students are now going to university because of the coronavirus, so they're studying from home and things like that. So it's not a good time to be selling a flat. So I've decided to keep that flat for the moment.
I think that's probably very wise.
Wait a year or two.
Yeah.
Just briefly describe what a one bed looks like for us there, please, in terms of...
So if you imagine the bank, it's on 4 floors. First floor is the grand sort of entrance, so quite high ceilings.
The banking hall, in other words.
The banking hall,
Yeah.
yes. And that's got the most constraints because it's got the strong room in it. And so there are just 2 flats in the downstairs. They are the bigger flats. So there's a 2-bedroom there and there's a 1-bedroom, but with a separate lounge and kitchen diner as well.
What size are they?
50 square metres. The downstairs ones are larger. Yeah,
The
the
ground floor will
ones.
probably be about, I'd guess, if the whole building's 5,000 square feet, the ground floor is probably 1,500 square feet, so they'll be quite good size.
So they're more like 600 or 700 square feet, I think. So the quotes include replacing all the windows on the first, second and the top floor. They are fairly expensive, but it's in that style because it is in a conservation area. The ground floor is secondary double glazing is going to be added.
Is it listed itself?
No.
It's not? Okay, interesting. Is there the opportunity to segregate off a separate lounge? And what I'm thinking is, can these 1-beds be used as 2-bed apartments? You know, is it big enough to have a 15 to 20 square metre?
It's quite difficult because there are some pretty solid walls in there.
Yeah.
And we're actually constrained by the walls rather than... yeah.
Okay.
That's the difficulty working with an existing building, isn't it? You've got to work with what you've got, and there's so many beautiful features, as we can see, that it would be a shame to, or it'd be nice to keep as much of that as possible.
I've previously had properties that have been quite expensive, if you like, and rented out to just a couple of tenants. And I've always felt there's a higher risk with that. I quite like the idea of having 9 smaller properties, and if I get one bad tenant, then there's less risk in terms of income.
And is your plan with this to keep hold of these and have it as rental income?
At the moment. The state of play isn't great in the rental.
Fluid, I think the word
Yes.
is fluid. You're fluid.
Yes.
You're fluid, Mike.
You own it cash, 340 to 500 to do the conversion, hopefully the lower end of that.
Yes, what I would say is I do have a listed building that we live in, and I have put 90,000 aside for development work on that, which we're going to do next year. So I could borrow that. And so I'm only actually after possibly 250, unless your interest rates are so good. No,
Right.
but 250 it would be sufficient.
So you've got here 470, including
That's what I've already
the
paid.
purchase cost.
So I've got 90 already tucked away.
But the 470 is what you expect it to cost in total, is that right?
That's what I'm
including your
expect-
initial purchase.
Yes.
So obviously, if it sells for the lower end of your estimates, there's very little in it.
Yeah, I don't see it as a money maker selling it, and I'm looking really to rent it.
All right. Well, we're looking for money makers. So I
I thought it
suppose
was
my next question is, what do you want from us?
Right. I thought it was also there was an option of providing short-term finance.
I think
from you.
the idea is ideally that there is an exit strategy, and of course there could be one here if you said, well, you have it equally or whatever, put some money up and so on. So I think let's just park that for the moment. Let's just see what Ranjan thinks of it as well, and me, and then we can talk round what you're saying.
I love bank buildings, done a few of these. I got really excited when I saw Stoke. I thought it might be Stoke Newington, but then I saw it was Stoke-on-Trent, which is a little bit further north.
Not too far for you, Ranjan.
than an area I'm more familiar with. I'm always get scared of low-value areas, and I start to look at the cost of the flat as being not that much more than the cost of actually sort of doing the conversion works. You mentioned you pull these comparables off a BBC website. So they're probably comparables, I guess, of 1 and 2 bedroom flats which are in adjacent residential streets as opposed to in a high street without much action on it. They would command a bit of a discount. Would that be fair to say?
I think that, as a flats go, offers a lot more than more conventional blocks that typically have high service charges and that sort of thing.
Whoever maintains if you're keeping it and you want to keep it as rental, the exit is by revaluation. So the value of the end flats is important to exit out the investors and keep it as a rental.
Yes.
So the value of those flats is important. And if you are keeping the freehold and managing it, older buildings will cost a lot more to generally upkeep.
Yes.
Because all those lovely turrets and things, they cost money when you get
yes.
birds nesting up there and all the rest
Yes.
of it, and you've got to deal with, which you don't have to deal with on modern buildings. What frightens me is the build cost. The cheapest cost, in my experience, when you get these tenders, is that they tend to go upward. They tend to go in cheap to kind of get the deal, or to get the contract, and then you get this extra and that extra, and it soon magnifies. So I'd be scared of that.
Right.
So for that reason, it's probably not for me. But I will share one tip with you, because I've done a few of these banks. I hope you've probably still got time to make a claim for capital allowances, because they're embedded with capital allowances. We can chip in on the purchase price, which might be something you want to Google, because all those vaults and things massively lessen the purchase price when you claim that back.
Right, okay.
So you might have just made yourself a bit of money today.
Have you looked at just sticking it back in the auctions? You've got planning on it now.
Oh, yes.
You looked at that
yes, part of it is I have fallen in love with the building.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'm not necessarily doing it for
Mike,
the money.
let me tell you something. Sorry to jump in. Do never fall in love. Only person to fall in love with is your wife. Do not fall in love with a building, because all that will do is disappoint you over the years. This is business. If you're coming in here, you want money offers. I don't want to hear, and no one else does probably, that you fall in love with it, because you'll make personal decisions instead of business decisions. In retrospect, would you have bought that at auction now?
Yeah, I think so.
You are. You're happy with your purchase?
Yes.
Okay. It isn't for me because there's not enough money in it.
Yep.
However, I might have some good news for you. If one of these other guys around here doesn't want to invest in it, the government are making grants available in these types of town centres. And it may be, just maybe, and I'm not guaranteeing anything, but it may be, if you look into that via your local authority, you might find there possibly could be some grants available to convert it into residential. And you need some help. Because with due respect, I don't believe you'll get it done for 340, 350. I think it'll be more like the upper end in the end. And when you've got one builder at 150 grand less than another, I'm always very suspicious. It isn't for me, and I do wish you all the very best. But if these other guys aren't interested, please do look into a potential of grants in towns and city centres. The government have made, I think, £1 billion available for that.
Yeah, that's a good tip, thank you.
Helen.
I can completely see why you've fallen in love with the building. A friend of mine did one of these in Bristol And it was a good job I wasn't invested actually, because I fell in love with the building and followed this much more avidly than perhaps I should have done. But I wasn't invested, so that was all fine. So I get it completely. John is right though that you would need to be careful that compromises or can compromise some of your decisions. I agree with what the guys have said also on the cost of this, and I would certainly, I'd have the 500 in your mind from the start. I really would. And you know, the numbers, even when we're looking at the lower end of 340, if the values come in at the lower end that you've given here, that's a gross profit there of 45k, so it's a 9% return on GDV. That's very, very tight at the best of times. That's tight in a rising market. If costs do come in nearer the 500, that wipes out your lowest and your medium. It wipes out all your profit in both of those scenarios. So you really do need to achieve your high end kind of prices, which I don't know how realistic that is. It is tight on the numbers. It's normally the type of projects that I would be involved with, but the numbers just are very tight on this. I prefer to do these type of projects with somebody that's done it before, so they know the things that catch you out. So it's beautiful. I think you're going to end up with, you know, beautiful project and beautiful flats at the end of it, but you're going to have to be really, really tight on those costs and manage that exceptionally well.
And of course you are able to fund it because you own the building, so you should be able to fund it with a bank.
Is that something you've looked at all, Mike?
I haven't looked at getting a bank to loan on that yet, no, because I assume it's...
The fact that you own it, cash,
yes,
quite often a lender will give you all of the build cost. What might restrict you in this case is that the build cost is substantially greater than the value of the asset, and that's not usually the case. But you would be able to borrow something, almost definitely, to contribute toward getting it done. I would have thought it's a newly converted bank on the high street that probably, and I don't know this for sure, and therefore I can't really take an educated guess on it, but I would have thought it would be toward the upper end of 1 and 2 bedroom flats in Tunstall, because they're newly converted and it's in a nice looking building and obviously a decent location being the high street. But I don't know that because I don't know the area in depth. But you should, because you own there.
yes.
So some stronger comparables may have changed it. But again, I suppose just out of interest, Mike, what were you looking for from the Angels today?
Potentially some short-term finance for, say, 6 months, or potentially a share of the development and then the final. But I do appreciate the second option is perhaps a little bit more difficult to organise and to...
Yeah, I think for me, similar to what Helen mentioned, the margin's just a bit thin for it to work. I think on both options, for me personally.
I think since we're on relationship advice, there's a very thin line between love and hate. And I think this could soon turn into hate when you get into this project. I noticed the auction board is in a northern auction. You know, quite frankly, for some reason or other, commercial to residential conversions are massively popular right now. Stick this in a London auction. Yep. Get out and do a better deal.
Get it sold.
This isn't a money maker, and the love you have for it will turn into hate in no time at all.
There'll be a divorce involved at some point.
Well, don't say that.
God forbid. God forbid. That's even more expensive.
Were there any contentious planning conditions, you know, precluding any future permitted development or any parking requirement, anything like that? Is there any parking with it actually?
No. It is the high street, and that's why the high street's dying there, because there is no parking.
Are we ready to show our hands?
I think most of us have showed ours. I think it's just.
I think so.
I think it's just you, Nicholas.
I mean,
left.
where I'm at, I actually think there's an opportunity to make some money by tweaking the layout. That's a big potential because I've not seen your floor plans.
Right.
But I think I might be able to add some value and get you to the top end of that valuation.
Interesting.
With some interesting tweaks to the floor plan. I actually would concur with the other guys. I think the best thing would be to prep it for auction, having done that work, having done your comparables and selling it on, but you need some expertise to get you to that auction stage to prepare it. So I'm not sure what I'm offering you, but I'm offering to work with you for a share of any profit over your minimum number. I guess my offer is my time to get you prepared for a resale, as long as that takes, maybe some planning tweaks to add the value and then put it into sale.
Whatever Mike paid for it, anything over and above that figure, when you resell it together,
Yeah.
you will go for...
We would go
whatever.
50-50
Yeah.
on that, having created more value through tweaking what you've got there with
At no
planning
cost
and
to you.
presentation, and no cost to you.
This is
Without building it,
and without building
just
it.
reworking the planning,
Yes.
maximising the value and
It's
sharing
a little
that
bit
profit.
like going to marriage counselling rather than a divorce.
Part of today was also to get your views on this, because I'm very new to this game.
Okay, well,
So
you've had a lot of
I
advice
do
in a very
appreciate
short
that. I've
period
had
of
a lot
time
of
today.
a lot
I
of
know it takes a
advice.
bit of...
Yes, so I do appreciate your views, even though they weren't necessarily positive for me, but they, you know,
Well, they are positive, Mike. They're very positive.
Yes.
You know, I can also help with the funding in terms of getting the right land and development owned funding, and I can top that up if needed. You've got some money to top it up. So I think funding, if we want to build it, it can be built. Just whether it should be built or not, if it's going to make any money,
Yep.
or if it's just maximising what we've already got. Bit of time from me. You've got the asset already. Let's just try and
Nick, all
maximise
you
the
really
sale.
need to know, presumably, is what Mike paid for it, so you can then decide whether or not
Well, I
both
paid-
of you are worth. It's
I
worth
paid
doing.
110 for it.
So we could share any uplift from 110, having reworked the planning
Yep.
and maximise the potential uplift from now.
Yes. So,
Would you like to know more about me?
yeah, is that
Do you know what?
is that now, or is this for discussion later?
No, that's an offer.
You need an answer. We
Need
want
an
an
I
answer
have to,
now.
I have to make a
That's how
decision.
it goes. Yep.
The deal is we work together, put it in the auction, whatever the cost, whatever we get net from the auction after the auction costs.
Yep.
We take 110. I get 110.
You get the
back,
first 110 out.
and then the rest of it we split between us.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
Well done.
Fantastic.
That's a great deal.
Virtual handshake.
So, Mike, we got a deal.
Yes, yes, it went very well.
Congratulations. I was
Thank you.
trying to listen in. I could hear a lot of negotiation going on.
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
I was asking initially for finance, but to a certain extent, really, what I was looking to do is to run it past them and the experts and get their view on how good they felt the project
The
was.
deal was. Right,
Yes.
okay.
I think realistically they've suggested that it isn't as good as I maybe believed. Maybe I'd fallen in love with the building too much.
Okay, so there's a little bit of an emotional investment in there
Yes,
as well.
I think so. But Nicholas was quite keen that we work together and maybe look at an exit strategy for me to actually sell the property, and then we'll share any additional profit that's made out of it.
Okay, excellent. So how do you feel about that? Are you happy?
Yes, no, I'm happy. Yes,
Good.
it's gone well.
Good.
Thank
And
you.
then you get the experience that Nick has as well. So
Yes, certainly.
really good deal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's been an intense day here today at Property Elevator with some more fantastic deals happening. Unfortunately, not all of our developers got the cash that they wanted, but they have walked away with some invaluable feedback from our angels. I'm Elizabeth Warburton, and you've been watching Property Elevator.